Hello and welcome to episode 5 of The Topic. Ben here, Steve's joining me as well, and we've got another special guest for this episode as well. But before I tell you how you can listen, you need to keep listening to this episode because it's going to be one of those that just catches your ears from start to finish. This is part 1 of our 25 years of the Premier League special. Part 2 is going to come in the October international break. Part 1, of course, all in this hour-long podcast that's coming right at you now. We're joined by a superb guest. Before I get into that, remember, if you're watching online, maybe on YouTube or the Football Terrace, you can catch us on Podbean, on Acast, on Stitcher, and also on iTunes. 50% of people listen to us for iTunes, so if you're one of those, come and be the 51%. Make sure you come and have a listen online and take us with you on the go. And also, of course, if you're listening in your ears now, you can see our wonderful faces on the Football Terrace too. We had some problems last week uploading, I'm sorry about that. But with no further ado, let's go straight to Steve, shall we? Steve, you've been looking forward to this podcast now for a number of weeks. We've got maybe one of your favourite guests ever to come on the show with us today. You're red in the face. People who are watching can see this. You can't wait. How excited are you to discuss your all-time Premier League 11?
Yeah, I'm buzzing for this one. When you mentioned it, like you said a couple of weeks ago, Pete's United royalty, mate, and yeah, part 1 and part 2. I can't wait to get into because they're properly tough. But yeah, I'm just can't wait to get started, mate.
Yeah, you sent me a text earlier on saying this was taking you forever. You sent me a text yesterday saying I'm still not done. Day before, no, I haven't got my 11 yet. How long has this literally been on your brain for? Because it seems like it's been on your mind forever.
Well, it has because, 25 years is a long time, and there's been some unbelievable players played. Obviously, United have, like we said, have dominated, and a lot of it, you don't want to be too biased, and you just, I've just gone with, basically, when Van Persie signed for United and he just said, I listened to the little boy. And I think that's literally what I did in the end. When I sent you the team, I just went, yeah, he's got to go in, and just did it like that. So, yeah, that was me, man.
I can't wait to see Mal and Fellaini anchoring your midfield. It's going to be great, that one. Steve, of course, with us all show, and I can only describe this guy as a football historian. There's nothing this guy doesn't know. There is stories that will just keep you in anticipation and mesmerised for absolutely hours. One of my favourite people that I've met through the powers of the internet, Pete Molyneux, author, historian, writer, all of the above. You'll know him for that Tara Fergie banner that was very, very famous. Boy, does he not regret that now. Pete, thank you so much for coming on, buddy. This is going to be brilliant. Your all-time Premier League 11. You must have some memories of the past 25 years.
Well, plenty, yes, Ben. And blimey, after that build-up and leading,
yeah, don't disappoint now.
It's going to be the most boring show you've ever done. But we'll try and live up to all those superlatives. And I'm just glad you could read me writing that I sent you. Yeah, 25 years of the Premier League, superb memories because of the quality of players that English football's had in that time. The money's attracted it, and sometimes the money is the devil's tune, but it's brought with it superb football, superb footballers. So a golden period.
Yeah, very golden period. And I've got to say, I did say to the guys, of course, we're all United fans. We must say that now. But I've asked the guys to be fair. And I, from my team, have sort of reflected their team where they might have gone a bit United heavy. So let's wait and let's see the team, shall we? And there's only one place to start. And that is goalkeeper. And we've all gone for a different goalie. Let's come to Pete first. Pete, your all-time Premier League 11, who have you gone for in goal?
Well, in goal, I've gone for Peter Cech. First of all, Ben, this is so hard for many reasons. Not just the goalkeeper, but the task you've set us. Great fun, but difficult. Because there's just been a vast number of very good players over 25 years to select just 11 from. And of the 49 clubs that have competed in the Premier League, only 6 have won the Premier League. Of those 6 that have won the Premier League, Manchester United have won more than the other 5 put together. And you've asked us to be fair, and we're Manchester United supporters. So that's very, very difficult to start putting other players in. Not because we might dislike them or anything like that, but because our players have been the best. And I think if as a Leeds or City or Liverpool supporter, I'd probably begrudgingly have to agree. But in terms of goalkeeper, there's been 4 great goalkeepers, I think, in the Premier League, and we've got 3 of them. Schmeichel, Van der Sar and De Gea. But Peter Cech has got that longevity, almost right from the start of the Premier League, the early years of 2004, I think he came in. I've looked for players that have had an impact on the Premier League, Ben, Steve, not just players that I might have liked or played on my team or scored great goals or were in the teams of the year. And when I look at Peter Cech, he's the most capped player, I think, in Czech history for his international team. He's won 4 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups, 3 League Cups. He's won the Champions League. I think he kept a record of something like 220 clean sheets for Chelsea, and at the moment holds the record clean sheets in the Premier League over those 25 years. So really, I think he just edges our 3 great goalkeepers out of it. So number 1 is Peter Cech.
It's interesting you say that, Pete, because I had this conversation with Steve the other day, who has gone for Schmeichel in goal. That maybe the whole treble-winning season might have been what's defined Schmeichel as the all-time Premier League great goalkeeper. Steve, you have gone Schmeichel. Tell us why. Is he the best goalkeeper you've ever watched?
Easy. I know what Pete's done. Pete's gone. I tell you what, I'll give up Schmeichel as the goalie and I'll get a non-United player in first and it's going to be lit, I'm telling you. I know what you mean about the 98-99 season. For me, listen, Peter Cech was an absolutely fantastic goalkeeper. That when Mourinho first come over and bought him and Robin in that summer, and Robin's another one who was just unbelievable. Cech had conceded something like 15 or 16 goals in, do you know what I mean, in that season. It was unheard of. It was crazy. And obviously they'd retain the title the following year, and obviously Cech's been unbelievable till he's gone to Arsenal. But Peter Schmeichel, in the years I've been watching it, the Premier League, I've never seen a performance like what Schmeichel did when we beat Newcastle 1-0 away, when Eric Cantona scored. For me, even, like I say, I can't. It's impossible for us to watch every 90 minutes of every team for the 25 years. No goalkeeper for me has come anywhere near close to a performance like that. And all right, and you look at Newcastle now and you go, oh, well, yeah, it's Newcastle. But Newcastle were one of the top teams at that time. And United were hunting them down. And they had Shearer, do you know what I mean? Ginola, Ferdinand. They had an unbelievable side. And I've never seen a performance replicated like that in my life. And if I do again, I'll be a lucky boy. De Gea's come close, so I'll give him that.
Well, I was going to say, with David De Gea, I mentioned this to both of you before the show. I thought it was quite interesting that Richard Keys picked David De Gea in his all-time Premier League 11. And I said to Steve, how many more Premier League trophies, or moving forward down the line, what does David De Gea got to do to get into this Premier League 11? So for me, he came close. But in the end, I did go Edwin van der Sar. Now, for me, I am 22 years old. So Van der Sar was the first goalkeeper I watched closely at Manchester United. Don't get me wrong, I got the back end of Peter Schmeichel, but Edwin van der Sar was that guy in goal that I watched week in, week out. And for me, I think that we would be talking about Edwin van der Sar being the all-time United best goalkeeper if we had signed him a few years before when Fergie first went in for him. I think the commanding nature he had about him, how big he was, he's just huge, massive. And the saves he pulled off and what he'd done for United, all in all, at an old age in the end, was absolutely phenomenal. So I went Edwin van der Sar, Pete went Petr Cech, Steve went Schmeichel, but we've got to decide on one. So I'm going to leave this down to you two, because I believe that I've gone Van der Sar because I'm quite new era, so to speak. I also agree with Pete on Petr Cech. You can't argue with Petr Cech's record. I still have that slight thing in my head with Schmeichel. Like, don't get me wrong, he is an incredible goalkeeper. I think 2 seasons might have defined him as a goalkeeper instead of 5 or 6. So, Pete, what are you thinking? Do you think you can concede this one to Schmeichel, or are you sticking with Cech?
I'd be happy to concede it to Schmeichel because the guy.
He's a United. Listen, I'm happy to concede as well, mate.
Yeah,
there's another 10 players after this that I can guarantee
we'll all be United players.
We will be arguing, saying he has got to go in. It's simple as
that. Steve read me so well. I didn't start with number 1 and go through to number 11. you have a look at the whole thing and you keep moving it around like a jigsaw puzzle. And it was which United players I was prepared to trade off just because of what I said earlier. You know, United players have won the most medals. So I had to sacrifice, I felt, a United goalkeeper. I was happy to sacrifice a United goalkeeper so I could get the other outfield players in of United that I want. Either way, if I was a manager of this team, I'd have Cech or Schmeichel or Van der Sar in there. They're all great keepers. So Steve's call.
Do you know what? I think we should go Cech. I think we should go Petr Cech. Just because, and to be honest, they're all in the same bracket. They are all in the same bracket. So let's go Petr Cech in goal in our Auto 11. Let's move on then to right back and left backs. I'll start with me. At right back, I've gone Ivanovic. And at left back, I've gone Ashley Cole. For me, Ivanovic done absolutely everything as a footballer. Oh my God, what a footballer. He was a beast at the back. He could get up and down that wing. He had a driver of a right foot as well for a ball in the box. And he could also score from corners. He was a threat in the box every single time. And do you know what? They say that being in the tunnel and looking at your opponents can sort of set the scene for a game. Could you imagine, right, being in that tunnel, I don't know, a young Marcus Rashford, okay? You're looking down that tunnel and you see a prime Branislav Ivanovic staring down with that monobrow, looking quite angry at you. To be honest, I would hate to run at him in a game, and I'd be scared at running at him in a game. I think he was a class defender, and he sort of summed up that whole Chelsea winning era as well, and pushed them on to that next level with the likes of Drogba, Cech, Terry, Lampard in there too. He's the same breed of player, and he's a winner. So that's why I went Branislav Ivanovic. I did go Gary Neville on the bench, though. I've got to admit, I went Gary Neville on the bench. He just missed out for me. And again, it's mainly down to my era. I saw more Ivanovic than I did Gary Neville in the end. And left back, Ashley Cole. Do you know what? I sort of mentioned this to Steve earlier, and I think we're all going to hit on this. I struggled at left back. I didn't want to put Ashley Cole in. But the only other player I could think of was Irwin. But again, I was thinking, well, I didn't see enough of Irwin. And he was very early on in the Premier League era. So in terms of most recent, the most complete left back, Evra, for me, it was the same thing with Evra. Couldn't defend. Could attack, but he couldn't defend. So I went as an all-rounded left back. I went with Ashley Cole. They're my arguments. Steve, who have you gone right back? Who have you gone left back?
Left back, Ashley Cole. I think it was pretty easy, to be honest. And right full back, I had to get... Again, like I say, I listened to the little boy screaming inside. And it was Dennis Irwin, mate. I put him right back.
He's not a right back.
He's either-footed. His delivery was absolutely crazily good. He could score free kicks. Fergie said every week he was a 7 out of 10. And aside, what you're picking at 11, honestly, mate, I don't know. I thought of Zabaleta at best for about 2 minutes. Ivanovic, don't get me wrong, I think he was a good right back. But again, he's screaming over 25 years who's done it. Left back, mate. Like again, you go in United every. Bar Ashley Cole, mate. Who am I going to put in? Nigel Winterburn. Have a day off, mate. No chance. Yeah. Irwin right back, Cole left back.
I think, Pete, you went for Ashley Cole at left back as well, so I think we can cement Ashley Cole in our all-time 11. But who did you go for at right back, Pete?
Right back. Well, funny enough, of all the positions, all the 11 positions, I think the Premier League has been least well served at right back in terms of great players. You've mentioned a couple. I like the Ivanovic one. I did consider him, and you've made a passionate case, Ben, and you've kind of, you've stirred something in me. I think it's a good choice.
I didn't mean it to be passionate, Pete. I promise you, I didn't mean it.
Chelsea.
He's trying to be fair, Ben. We all got the email. But I heard somebody mention the other day, because you couldn't. These are all over the papers, aren't they? People picking the best 11. Somebody put Rob Jones in there, somebody who we've forgotten a little bit about the early days of the Premier League, who played for Liverpool, who had quite a meteoric rise in the Premier League from Crewe to Liverpool to England International. But for me, he just didn't do enough long enough, and not because he plays for Liverpool. Micah Richards, was a great potential at one stage, but never really lived up to it. Glenn Johnson, another Liverpool fullback, who I think in times did impress me with his strong running from right back and could belt in a good goal from a distance. Wes Brown played fullback very well.
Yes. By the way, can I just say, John O'Shea is a utility player as well. Always done a job, didn't he?
Yeah, and United have been blessed with those utility players that can stand in and do a great job.
We've got one now. His name's Daley Blind.
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he's doing all right. I thought that if Paul Parker just missed out on the Premier League
Ooh.
years, he was a very good fullback, but he got injured. If he'd have stayed, I'd have had him in as right back.
Pete, just quickly, a funny story about Paul Parker. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but so I live in a place in Kent, a small place in Kent called Folkestone, okay? And about 2 or 3, no, how long was it? 4 or 5 years ago, it must have been, right? I open up the paper, the Folkestone Herald, and I look at the back page. It goes, ex-Manchester United star becomes assistant manager to Neil Cugley, who's the Folkestone Invicta boss. I'm like, who the hell is this? So I have a look on the back and I see the name Paul Parker is now Folkestone Invicta assistant manager. And I go and look at that, I'm like, Paul Parker? That can't be the actual Paul Parker. So I go online, I do some studying, I do some research. Anyway, this was when his managerial career sort of took a turn a bit. And I don't know if he was living in Kent at the time as well. So he decided to come down and assistant manager at Folkestone anyway. I couldn't believe it. So I went down there and watched a game. And putting in mind I must have been, 16 at this point? Massive United fan. Never watched Paul Parker play because it was too early for me. But watched the videos, heard people like yourself talk about how amazing Paul Parker was as a player. I was thinking, do I say hello? Can I say hello? Do I just stick my head over? Anyway, it was about the 60th minute, and that was when I had the guts, right? I stuck my head over and went, Paul, can I have a picture? He was like, mate, I'm managing it. I'm in the middle of a game. Like, he was really into the game. And at this point, he was putting players. He was absolutely destroying this Folkestone team. They're about 2-0 down. So he was going crazy. It's the worst time for me to ask for the picture. Anyway, I had friends, younger friends, like sort of watching and doing that. So I stayed until the end of the game, right? And no word of a lie, Paul Parker came out looking for me. And he went, you asked me for a picture. Sorry I couldn't do it. But here you go, let's have a picture. And I sat there, I had a chat with him about how big a United fan I was. Spoke about bits and pieces, said how he was doing some MUTV stuff as well a couple of weeks later. And he was the nicest guy I think I've ever met. But I think it's so strange that he was assistant manager of the Folkestone Invicta team, but he was only here for about a year. And then a year later, I saw him on TV doing stuff. So, sorry, I had to get butt in with that story. Paul Parker, great person. Dwight York, absolute arse. Carry on.
I'm glad I didn't put York in my team.
Oh, he was awful.
It's a good story. I was just a bit surprised in that sentence. Assistant manager of Folkestone Invicta. Assistant manager, not even manager. Then
he was assistant manager to Neil Cugley, who's been the boss here at Folkestone for so many years and done a cracking job with them. But no, I just thought, how much money would it have taken to bring him down? He must have lived in the area and wanted to do it as sort of for his coaching badges and stuff.
Yeah, well, I tweeted a little picture out the other week. It's just a very short story of Fergie with his arms round Schmeichel, Kanchelskis and Paul Parker, who he bought around about the time of 1991. He was just building his team that eventually won the league. 3.1 million he bought those 3-4 in total. 3.1 million.
God, how much would that be worth today?
Well, blimey, on Neymar's valuation, good God, you'd six. I don't know, but 500 million the total. I don't know.
Well, Keane did the best one, didn't he, last week? When it was like, how much would Rude be today? $1 billion.
He would,
yeah,
though.
Exactly.
Rude was quality.
It was brilliant. That was.
Just got a lot of notes. I don't even know what £1 billion is. But out of all that, Ben, of all those nearly made it, I've gone for Gary Neville.
Yeah, sorry, I butted in, Pete.
No, it's all right. No worries. But Gary Neville, Fergie says, first of all, he was the best English fullback of his generation. So it takes a fool to argue with Fergie. He won 8 league titles, 3 FA Cups, 2 Champions League, an international Continental Cup and a World Cup winners medal, 85 caps. But forget the facts. If you just saw the tenacity and the aggression of his tackling and the way he was a leader of men in United's youth team, and then he didn't stay in the reserves very long, straight into the first team, he was the most reliable, most consistent and most able right fullback I think English football's had over that 25-year period. Well, he played for about 15 years. So I've gone for Gary Neville. And Ashley Cole. Ashley Cole must be good because every instinct in my body, every sinew and tissue said, I don't like the man because of his what seemed to be a consistently obscene pursuit of money. But he was a bloody good player. So I've put Cole in and next to Gary Neville. Yeah,
so we've gone Cole left back definitely, I think. Between Ivanovic, I'm going to say Ivanovic and Gary Neville. Sorry, Steve, you can feel free to hit me with a hammer on the head, but I just think if you think Owen, you think left back. So I'm going to say that we could have Irwin in there as a second choice left back, as on the subs bench. I'm afraid can't believe I'm saying that about Dennis Irwin. But seeing as Steve here is the one who's got to decide, seeing as he's the one with not a player in there, it's between me and Steve, Ivanovic and Gary Neville. Without that United hat being on your head, Steve, vote Ivanovic. Who do you think right back, Gary Neville or Ivanovic?
Gary Neville. I wouldn't even have Ivanovic on the bench.
Wow. There we go. Gary Neville then at right back. Pete wins that one. Let's move on to centre-backs. Steve, let's come to you first then, mate. You've gone for two absolute warriors.
Yeah, I've gone Tony Adams, mate, and Nemanja Vidic. I've got to be honest, it was tough because it broke my heart leaving Jaap Stam out. And even though you're breaking rules of going, you've got to do it over a consistent amount of time. You put all the cliches on it and stuff like that. Jaap Stam was crazy, but like I say, Vidic was just screaming out, he's got to go in there. And I was a big fan of Tony Adams growing up, and like what Pete said, it'd be a fool to argue with Fergie, and Fergie had said you're a United centre-half playing for the wrong side, and obviously Adams had said the same about Fergie, obviously not managing Arsenal when he was going to go there, but yeah, it was hard because the centre backs, like Pete, being absolutely blessed watching some absolute stunners over the time. But I whittled it down to Tony Adams and Nemanja Vidic.
Yeah, talking about Vidic, Pete, you've gone Vidic in there as well. With possibly, is this the best centre back partnership of all time in the Premier League? Would you say, Pete?
Well, I've gone for Vidic and Ferdinand as a unit, not just because they're two United players, but I don't think there's been a better central defensive pairing in the last 50 years that I've been watching football. That's just my opinion, but forget the Premier League. In the last 50 years, I've not seen a better partnership. They were United's rock through the most successful period in the history of England's most successful club, 2006 to 2013. So that didn't happen by accident. They were. An American coach once said that strikers win games, defenders win titles, and Fergie knew that. People forget how United were slipping into Chelsea and Arsenal's jet stream in the mid-noughties, so about 10 or 11 years ago. We haven't been outside the top two in the first 10 years of the Premier League, Ben. Okay, but from 02 to 05, we finished third in 3 times out of 4 seasons. So not too many facts here, but 3 out of 4 seasons we finished third. The other time we won it, but we were slipping a bit. In the January window of 2006, when everybody thought United needed strikers because the goals had dried up in Europe and in the league, and our midfield had lost Keane and Scholes because of an eye injury, Fergie went out and bought Ever and Vidic, and everyone thought he was mad. And after the first game, when we lost 4-1 to City, even more so. The man knew what he was doing, as he always knew what he was doing. And Vidic and Ferdinand then went on to take United from third in the league to champions within a couple of years, European champions and world club champions. Vidic and Ferdinand.
Yeah, do you know what? Definitely the best defensive partnership I've ever seen, I've got to say. And I did go for Ferdinand as well. For me, it's an absolute joke, anyone who thinks that Rio is not the best English centre-back of the last 10, 20 years. Just absolute quality, Rio Ferdinand. He could do everything from defend, tackle, command that box, lead the team, to then going forward with the ball, his feet as well, and his passing range as well. He's an absolutely superb player, Rio Ferdinand. But I partnered him with Vincent Kompany. Now, the reason why I went Vincent Kompany is because ever since he's come to the Premier League, he has been there or thereabouts. He's been there or thereabouts in terms of being in the best defence of the league, being there and thereabouts of winning the championship, and being there and thereabouts of commanding that whole Manchester City side. I mean, for me, it's no surprise that City took that step up with Vincent Kompany being the frequent man at the back. He's an absolutely superb player. And I spoke a bit about Ivanovic being that absolute, I use the word, the absolute bastard in the tunnel. You could see Vincent Kompany being the same, just gritty, aggressive. He is the only Man City player, because once you play for City, you don't come to United, but he's one of the only Man City players right now who I'd straight away, even at his age, go, I'd still have Kompany in that dressing room. I think he is superb. The way he speaks, how passionate he is. I just think Vincent Kompany is great. But I think the only way we can sort of decide this is that two of us have gone Vidic, two of us have gone Ferdinand. So I think the defensive partnership has to be Ferdinand and Vidic. I think that's the fair way of doing it. It means Kompany misses out, and it means Tony Adams misses out. But I think, Steve, we've got to agree, the whole defence in terms of going Cech, Gary Neville, Ferdinand, Vidic, Cole, probably the right move.
Yeah, it is, mate. I mean, what Pete said there was bang on, mate. I remember that period of watching Rio and Vidic together, mate, and they were phenomenal, weren't they? And obviously Van der Sar behind them and stuff like that. And like you said, Pete said there, everyone just sort of just went and did their own thing, and we were unbelievable at that time. And I'm happy concede Adams. I just couldn't I had to mention him. I couldn't leave him out, man.
Right, then let's move on to wingers, shall we? And this one's going to be interesting. By the way, we're going for the traditional 4-4-2. We thought keep it vintage, seeing as we're talking about vintagey type stuff. The last 25 years of the Premier League, it has been dominated by the 4-4-2 formation, apart from now when people are going 3-5-2. Anyway, let's go for our two wingers, shall we? Right midfield, left midfield. Should I start this one? I'll kick this one off. I've gone Beckham on the right, Ronaldo on the left. And the reason why I've gone Beckham on the right, and I've mentioned this before in so many different podcasts that we've spoken about it, I personally think David Beckham was so harsh not getting the World Player of the Year, the Ballon d'Or, in 99. I think he was probably the best player. Steve, you mentioned it before, the assists in all the important games he came up with. And also, by the way, you mentioned about Tony Adams being one of the childhood heroes for you, or one of the players you used to love to watch. For me, David Beckham was my absolute childhood hero. Like, I just absolutely love him. And the fact that he also went from the Premier League to then play, and I don't think I've seen any other player play to the age that Beckham did, but finish at the high level of PSG. Like, it wasn't just like he went to Real Madrid and was phenomenal there. He then went to LA Galaxy and revolutionised a whole country when it comes to football, soccer, some people call it. But he revolutionised the whole country and made the MLS a thing. And there's only one footballer who could have done that, and that was David Beckham. And he went and done that. He then went from LA Galaxy and he went on to PSG, AC Milan. He finished in Paris. I just think David Beckham, for me, is the epitome of a classy footballer. And his right foot, I don't think we'll ever see anyone with as good a right foot as that. I mean, he could pick anyone out from left, right and centre, couldn't he? He was absolutely phenomenal. And he was my hero. And everything he done for England, I mean, for me, David Beckham had to be in there. And because of that, I left out Ryan Giggs, because I've gone with Ronaldo on the left wing. And the reason why I went Ronaldo on the left wing is because he's a superstar. He's an absolute superstar. Maybe you could say his best days came after he left the Premier League, and that could be an argument to throw Giggs in there instead. But we were sort of at the birth of a child when Ronaldo appeared on the scene, because that was the start of something special, and we all knew it, and we all saw it in front of us. And I'll never forget one of my first. It wasn't my first United game, but one of the ones that I can remember was watching that free kick against Portsmouth. Look, it might have taken a bit of a deflection, but it was his first ever United goal, and I was there to watch it, and a star was born. So I've gone Ronaldo on the left. I've gone Beckham on the right. Pete, who have you gone with?
I'll tell you in a minute, Ben, but I think there must be something wrong with your microphone, because I thought I heard you say that's why I've left Ryan Giggs out.
I have left Ryan Giggs out. Mate. I've left Ryan Giggs out.
Just a minute. Of course, and it's all about opinions. I must keep reminding myself. Definitely Cristiano Ronaldo on the right. And God, we could be here all night talking about stats about Ronaldo, because he's just unbelievable. But you just have to ask anybody where they've been for the last 14 years if they thought Ronaldo shouldn't be in the best Premier League team. And another measure, which almost is immeasurable, but in the time I've watched United, which I mentioned earlier, and there's been a galaxy of stars, an absolute galaxy of stars, particularly strikers and wingers. Steve says we're blessed. the greatest of all was Georgie Best, still is Georgie Best, and it's not just nostalgia. He was unbelievable, but he's the only one that could edge out Cristiano Ronaldo. And I think if Ronaldo would have stayed with United, I may have been torn completely between Ronaldo and Best. So definitely Cristiano Ronaldo on the right wing. I've put him, but and I love Beckham. I love Beckham, and there should be no buts, Ben. Beckham was a great player, great servant to United, superb for the Premier League, and became everyone's hero, still is. I just think there was a little change around 2001 when he got that goal for England against Greece at Old Trafford, ironically. His focus seemed to be a little bit more on England then than United, and it's not something we like up in the north, Ben.
It was a big World Cup year, though, wasn't it? It was a huge World Cup year, that, for England. They were pioneered for success in that year. And I can sort of understand, once you've had that huge moment, let's not get it wrong, that moment, that whole game against Greece for Beckham was, I think, the turning point of him just being an England legend to an England great. I literally think that was the moment. And the whole captaincy, the whole pressure that came with it for David Beckham. That season, you're right, did sort of change a bit, but then you've just got to see what he done after that and what he done everywhere else. And I understand Ronaldo, and don't get me wrong, I've picked Beckham over Giggs just off of personal preference, not off of quality on the pitch. That's why I've gone Beckham. But I've also got a question. Ronaldo, I understand he has now become the greatest player in world football for me, hands down. But has he done as much in the Premier League, as David Beckham?
Oh, well, you can take, I'll just give you, I'll set it up for you to decide. Beckham made his debut, I think, in a game against Brighton in 1992, so right at the start of the Premier League, in a cup game, but he played regularly after that, and finished with United in 2003, just after we won the league, so he had 10 years. Ronaldo had from 03 to 09. So Beckham had a little bit longer, but I don't think Beckham could have the impact that Ronaldo had. Ronaldo could do anything and actually got better almost tangibly with every game. He took it to a new level. The way he must have practiced his stuff must have been phenomenal. Beckham was very good at that. Cantona was. Guys that when others had gone home stayed on the pitch and kept practicing. You could see it, touch it, smell it with Ronaldo. He was getting better and better. It broke my heart when he left in 09. We knew the year before he was going to go. But I'd edge him in just because of the greatness, and he took us to a... To be fair, though, one thing, I'm arguing against myself here now, Ben. Beckham's finest hour for United was when he covered for the absence of Scholes and Keane in that European Cup final in Barcelona. That was his greatest game, and he played out of position, as a few players did that night. Giggs on the right, Blomqvist on the left. He carried United to something we'd waited for 31 years, was it? So
stepped up to the plate, didn't he? Stepped up to the plate that night.
Yeah, very close between Beckham and Ronaldo. I can't leave Giggsy out. Ryan Giggs is the top appearance scorer. The man's got 13 league title medals. That's more than Chelsea, City, Blackburn, Leicester, and Arsenal have got in the Premier League years. That's one man, not just a club. Ryan Giggs, superb artistry. Scored probably the greatest goal the FA Cup's ever seen. But it does bring home how we're blessed. Beckham, Ronaldo and Giggs for two positions. How can any other team get a look in with a player from their side?
Yeah, do you know what? It's so interesting as well. Like you can't argue with Giggs. The only reason why I've left him out is just personal. Like Ronaldo, I love him. I absolutely love him. Whenever anyone tries to have the Messi Ronaldo debate with me now, they lose. They lose because they go Messi and I go Ronaldo. And Beckham is again, he's just my childhood hero. I could only leave Giggs out through personal preference. That's all I could do. But the numbers don't tell that story. Like, there's no reason you can leave Ryan Giggs out. Steve, you've also gone Ronaldo and Giggs. Anything you want to add there to what Pete was saying?
Well, Beckham's a big one, man. I grew up. I idolised Eric Cantona, man. It broke my heart when he went. Beckham was like the hero after that because Beckham could do absolutely everything. I still don't think we'll see a better passer or a crosser of a ball, especially from England. Probably in world football, he had absolutely everything. He had an engine, and he was phenomenal for Manchester United. And obviously, he's an hard one to leave out of here, but Giggs for me on the left speaks for itself. You just think of this side in the pomp, Ryan Giggs in mid-90s to late 90s. I mean, forget, not even, can't say forget after that because he changed completely what he was and went into centre midfield and still won titles. But that Ryan Giggs was absolutely breathtaking. Cristiano Ronaldo needs absolutely no introduction. And for me, he gets in over Beckham. One of the reasons I thought of, like, especially being an English lad, and I grew up with a generation that pretty much everyone, not just United fans, everyone was all over Becks. It was like he was the golden boy of England, and absolutely everyone wanted to play like him and whatsoever. The game where Ronaldo made his debut against Bolton at home, obviously it's easy to say because Becks had gone to Real Madrid, and me personally, I'd witnessed a change in players that you play with and stuff like that. And a generation have gone, what on earth has that boy just done? I've never in my life seen feet like that. And we can go on, goals and assists on debuts, and it took him a while to get going. Cristiano Ronaldo, when you watched him, that was just, everyone just sort of sat back and went, like, where can this kid go? Because he was absolutely crazily good. And I mean, that 3 years in a row, like Pete said, United's successful period, Cristiano Ronaldo was doing stuff that, listen, if I see that again in my lifetime, honestly, I'll set the bar down now. If I see that at that level of a player, what Ronaldo did for them 3 years from any United player, I'll count myself very, very, very lucky. And that's what I'd say to Ronaldo. Ronaldo would have broke every record here. Shearer's would have gone by now. United's would have gone 2 or 3 years ago, mate. That, honestly, he was that good. And honestly, it just sat down. I'd play Ronaldo out of position. He's got to get in. And then, like I say, a 90s Ryan Giggs. And for me, it was as simple as that.
I'm losing this one, aren't I? I'm going to have to concede to this one. And I'll tell you what, it's not a bad couple of players to concede to, is it? Ronaldo, Giggs on the wings then. Let's move to central midfield. And again, so difficult. So difficult. Pete, let's start with you this time. Who have you gone as your centre mids?
Do you want one at a time? Or centre mids? No, there's two. Okay, well, first of all, very, very tough one, this, for obvious reasons. Because he was the talisman of our biggest rivals. And I've gone for Steve Gerrard. And only sad because he leaves other United players out of it. But to be fair, Gerrard's drive and leadership and ability was immense. And during the last 15 years, he is the only Liverpool player I can think of that I would have really wanted in the United side. In fact, when Roy Keane was ebbing away, and Fergie was desperately trying to get another Roy Keane in, and he had to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince. He got Jemba in and it didn't work, and Liam Miller, and he got Kleberson in. He tried Alan Smith, brought some youngsters in. They shouldn't have even got past the audition stage. There were no Roy Keane's level. In the end, Fergie had to replace Roy Keane with two players, Michael Carrick and Owen Hargreaves. If we could have got Gerrard, kidnapped him, put him in a safe house in Salford, and got him to play for Man United around 2005.
Yeah, but Pete, that's not what Mancunians do. That's what Scousers do. They're the ones who kidnap and put people into the back of the van. Sorry to all Scousers that are listening to this podcast right now. I couldn't help myself. I apologise. Steve's even shocked that I've just said that, and that says something.
I just want to remind, I live a lot nearer to Liverpool, Ben.
Oh, dear, I've ruined the show.
I've got to be a bit careful.
I've ruined the show.
But seriously, when I think of the way, just 2 games, the way Gerrard rescued Liverpool from that 3-0 deficit against AC Milan in the European Cup final in 2005, it broke my heart. I'd gone out for more beer at half-time because I only had 2 cans in. It was 3-0 for Liverpool, and David Platt, I think it was on the radio, was saying this could be an embarrassing 6 or 7-0 defeat for Liverpool. I was trying to drive at the time, I've got to stop it. An hour later, Liverpool were European champions, and that was down to one man. Gerrard got him by the scruff of the neck. He also did it in the cup final a year later against West Ham. So, a great, great player, Gerrard. And at one point, I was almost sad that he didn't get his league title winners' medal when he retired. It reminded very, very much of Brian Robson at United. Robson, in the end, did get a title at the end of his stay at United. Gerrard couldn't with Liverpool, but we won't too many tears. Gerrard in there, and then to lift it up a bit, Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes. You shouldn't say much about Paul Scholes because he doesn't say much about himself, but his record speaks for itself. Again, 11 league titles he got, 3 FA Cups, but probably one of the finest midfield players England's had, again, in the last 50 years. Every other fan, if they were being honest, would have had Paul Scholes in their team at any time. So in the middle, Gerrard and Scholes, great midfield.
Yeah, I've gone exactly the same as you, Pete. I've gone Scholes, Gerrard for the same reason. Gerrard's pull. And also, let's not forget, quality-wise, what Gerrard could do from the edge of the box when the ball comes to his feet. I mean, he could score goals from absolutely anywhere. His ability on corners, and also, as you said, that leadership. And to be honest, if I was to give anyone captain in this side, it would probably be Steven Gerrard, just because of that raw captain's instinct of it. I mean, I know we've got Vidic. I'm not talking about that team. I'm talking about my team. We've got Vidic in the real one. But in my side here that I've got down, the only person who sort of comes close is maybe Ferdinand. I think Gerrard is just that raw leader. And as you said, the way he led Liverpool to different heights on the European stage and also in the Cups as well. I think he was very unlucky not to get that Premier League medal. And I think he's probably always going to be one of those players that did deserve one, but never got it, unfortunately for him. And as you said, Paul Scholes, I think Steve said it a minute ago with Beckham. I don't think we're going to see ever anyone who has that sort of passing range and drive and the way David Beckham was. And I think we're in that same with Paul Scholes. Why it never worked with England, I don't think we'll ever be able to understand, so to speak. It just didn't, did it? And I think if it had have done, England would have been on a whole different height. They would have been on a whole different level with a Paul Scholes in their team. I always got the impression Scholes wasn't asked about England anyway, which was in some ways great. He just loved playing for Manchester United. He loved playing up in Manchester. He didn't really care much about the international break. Basically, he's like every single United fan. Let's face facts nowadays. So, you know what? I'm just happy we saw the best goals. And let me tell you, there is no other player in world football who would be able to dust his boots off 3 days before a Manchester derby after being retired, go down the shop, buy a pair, and put in a man-of-the-match performance like he did on the return on that day when Fergie gave him a call and said, look, we desperately need a midfielder. Come back and play. I know you've not been playing for 6 months, but we need you. And he came and done it, and he was phenomenal for that year and a half that he did come back for. And he's the only player to do that for me. So again, I went Scholes, Gerrard. Steve, you went Scholes as well, but who did you get to partner him?
Patrick Vieira.
Oh.
Now I'm glad, right, that Pete sort of talked Gerrard up, because Gerrard is tough to leave out. Because listen, when you're doing stuff like this, you've got to put away the fact that Liverpool are the enemy and blah blah blah. But even early, Gerrard, he scored against us in the bloody Carling Cup final at fucking Wales, and they did us at 2-0 at Anfield one time, and they were just screamers all the time, and the guy never stopped. So it was hard for me to leave him out, mate. And I'll get Vieira. Vieira's probably misplaced one pass in his fucking life, and he gave it to Giggs. And he's one of the best moments that will, like I say, unbelievable. But Patrick Vieira, I mean, he did a lot with Arsenal. Again, like I say, I've included a few Arsenal players in this purely because they're one of the sides that you remember, for me, that remembering when United were going head to head, and that Keane and Vieira documentary they did a few years ago, and the insight and obviously into Patrick Vieira. I mean, it was a joy to watch. For me, he had absolutely everything. And you said earlier with company, if I was in a tunnel and I was looking up at Patrick Vieira and you watched how quick he was, his strides, his tackling was absolutely phenomenal. He could pass, his goal scoring was unbelievable. Great captain as well. And Roy Keane gave him an unbelievable compliment when he said, when I was coming up against Arsenal, he said, in the week, my body would sort of get ready itself because I was going to war and I had to win with Patrick Vieira. And listen, Roy Keane, I haven't even mentioned him to be put on this side. It breaks my heart, man. So I love Keano. But he paid him a compliment like that, and I just thought, Patrick Vieira's in my side. Scholes, I'm not going to talk about Scholes. It's absolutely pointless. We'll be here for 14 hours. Easy one. Patrick Vieira partners them for me, mate, and that's the reason why.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you think about the Invincibles and you think about how many players from that team get into the all-time Premier League 11, and you say so far, wow, absolutely not really any of them, have they, so far? let's put that on a plate. But you mentioned there, Steve, Roy Keane. I want to come to Pete about Roy Keane, because I know Pete's going to have some stories on Roy Keane. And I know for a fact Pete absolutely loves Roy Keane as well. We haven't included him in our side, Pete, but how close does Roy Keane come to getting in the all-time Premier League 11?
Well, it should be there. I can't. It's only because I've had to put non-United players in that Roy Keane isn't there. But let's forget about this little side. Roy again. Roy Keane, for me. When you look at when Fergie was building the side, you look at what was the most pivotal signing, and you could have a couple of hours about that, Ben. You know, you have to get perhaps a few older people on, but you could say Cantona, you could say Keane, you could say Schmeichel, even Dennis Irwin. As it was, they all gelled together. But Roy Keane personified Fergie on the pitch, and Roy Keane, bloody hell, it was fearsome, but he knew how to play the game, and he knew how to run a team right at the top level, week in, week out, and he put his body on the line. Again, Giggsy scored the greatest goal probably I've ever seen. The greatest United performance I ever saw was in Turin in April '99 to come back 2-0 down after 11 or 12 minutes against a Juventus side that was going for 4 consecutive European finals on the trot, you know, Zidane and all the rest. And we came back and won 3-2. Greatest performance I've ever seen live. In that game as well, the greatest individual performance I've ever seen by a United player since I first started watching him in '63 was Roy Keane. And in his book, when I read it, he said, a lot of people say that was the greatest performance they'd seen. They gave it to me. He said, I just think they were being sympathetic because I missed the final. Well, I disagree with him. I'm not sure I disagree with him if I were face-to-face with him. But I've disagreed in writing with him, and I disagree with him here now. I've seen great performances by United players to bring United back from the edge. But Roy Keane that night in the cauldron in a cathedral of Europe single-handedly kept going and kept a relatively young team, battling away to reach the pinnacle of English football. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was going to miss the next match. He was superb as a player, as a scorer, as a captain. So Roy Keane, and for all the things he's done and said since, a bit like Bestie, none of it can take away for what he did for Manchester United.
And I think it's interesting you say that as well. And that you're going about being sympathetic for him. The fact that he battled through knowing what was going to happen, that he was going to miss that final. I just think that just shows the warrior Roy Keane was as well. He's phenomenal football. And how much did we buy him for again?
3.75 million, was it? Stolen from under Dalglish's nose at Blackburn.
Wow.
It could have been a very different Premier League if Blackburn had got Keane. But
did they have Shearer at the time? They would have had Adam Shearer at the time, wouldn't they? Yeah. So United lost Shearer to Blackburn, and we got Keane, and it was Fergie's rock at that time to build a very good side around. Yeah, interesting. Again, I think we're going to have to go with the majority here, Steve. Sorry, mate. I think we're going to have to go Scholes Gerrard in here. I'm sure you won't lose any sleep over the fact that we've gone with that and not gone with Vieira.
I'd have preferred Keane go in.
We can't change now. No one put Keane down, so we're going to have to go.
No, I'm only joking. No, you can't.
Scholes and Gerrard it is. So far the team is Cech, Gary Neville, Ferdinand Vidic, Ashley Cole. We've then got Ronaldo, Gerrard, Scholes and Giggs. Let's move on to the strikers, shall we? And me and Steve here, we're in agreement. And let me talk you through my strikers. I've gone Thierry Henry. Absolutely quality. I don't think anyone can argue that he possibly is the best Premier League striker of all time. I'm going to let Steve and Pete talk more about Henry, but I want to chat about Ruud van Nistelrooy. Now, I don't know if this is just personal preference. I don't know if I'm just overrating him. I don't know if stats do match up at all with why I think Ruud van Nistelrooy is one of the greatest Premier League strikers. But for me, he was the deadliest striker in the Premier League. And for me, he was just his whole charisma, the charismatic player that he was, and how he was just a brilliant number 10. He was just a great number 10. You didn't have to, and I think I read a stat about his goals. Didn't he only get 1 or 2 from outside the box in his whole career? That's a number 10. That's what a number 10 is. We forget this. And what annoyed me recently with Ibrahimovic and players like that, players going about how, all these goals are from inside the 6-yard box. All these goals are from around the penalty area. That's the whole point of a striker. Strikers score goals, and Ruud van Nistelrooy scored goals. Right place, right time. Ruud van Nistelrooy. That's who he was. That goal against Fulham, though, for me, is what showed athletically and also ability-wise how good Ruud van Nistelrooy was. Picked the ball up on the halfway line. He beat about 4 or 5 players in that Fulham side. And at that time, if I remember rightly, Fulham were not slouches when it came to defending a game and seeing a game out. Look, they weren't the greatest team in the Premier League, but they weren't slouches. He done them all. And then had the composure to finish off balance like he did. It was a phenomenal goal. Arsenal. Let's go back to Arsenal and everything that happened against Arsenal. And he slotted home that penalty the year after like he was trying to nick a sausage roll off the table at a party without anyone. It was just so easy for him. He was a brilliant striker. And for me, he is one of the greatest I've seen at Man, if not the greatest I've seen at United. In my time I say, by the way, and that's the last 20 years. I just absolutely loved Ruud van Nistelrooy, and if I could go back in time, bring him now to this United side, we'll win everything. He was just a quality player, and that's why I've gone Ruud van Nistelrooy and Thierry Henry. Steve, you agree with me? You've gone Ruud as well. Don't know if you want to touch on him for you and why you've put him in the team, but also Thierry Henry.
I like the Fulham goal, mate. And I always remember when he got down at Charlton away, Rooney's gone on some amazing run off the left, smacked the ball in with his left foot, and Ruud sort of like turned and swiveled midair and chested it and fucking volleyed it in the top corner. I was like, oh, this guy. I mean, we're saying about Bex. Bex was putting him on a plate for Cole and York and Van Nistelrooy. That's the thing with Bex. Van Nistelrooy's form sort of slipped when Beckham had gone. Yeah. Because Fergie had sort of like what Pete had said. I remember Fergie had just sort of moving. The game was just going to be, we were going to hit him on the counter. And he started playing Saha. And Van Nistelrooy was, oh, mate. You're right on everything you say. My favourite goal of Van Nistelrooy's, Highbury, Arsenal away. I think we drew 2-2. And he's come off the halfway line, mate, left them all for dead and just flicked over Seaman. We didn't even mention David Seaman in goals. Crazy. And he's just flicked out like he's just some Sunday League goalkeeper, mate. The guy was goals. He had absolutely everything in his lock. And you just knew when he went through on goal, it was a goal. And Henry, yeah, he's up there. I think him and Ronaldo set the bar of they're the best players for like consistency. And they'll set a level that, like I say, if you see that again, mate, you just take your hat off. And I mean, Henry, they were our biggest rivals at the time when Henry was at Arsenal. And that goal he scored against Barthez, and he just did it all the time. You know what I mean? And they were just crazily good goals, and that guy was frightening. And yeah, for me, the strikers, it was obviously I could make a case for a lot of them, but in the end, both of them had, because they were both playing at the same time. And Van Nistelrooy used to sulk when he didn't score, and Henry did, because they were both fighting together for the golden boots, and I just loved all of that. And yeah, they were in there for me by probably a mile in the end, to be honest.
And what was it?
I'm just looking forward to see who Pete's put in.
Well, I was going to say, what was it? 10 games in a row he scored as well. Set that record. Yeah. Of course, Jamie Vardy's recently gone and he got 11, didn't he, in the end? But still, in that era as well, when you think about it, with the Premier League strikers for him to do that was, and against the teams as well, as I said.
And he was like miles ahead of like sort of his time as well, because if you remember, Peter will remember, like, he'd be standing 10 yards offside before Bex would whip a ball in, and everyone just sort of seemed copying what he was doing. The guy just them little things to sniff out goals. Ruud did, and Ruud bagged for fun, and that's why I still to this day, Ben, don't buy while he's won this many titles and he's done that. Listen, we've got Gerrard on the team. He didn't win any. Doesn't mean nothing. Ruud van Nistelrooy won one title with United. It's embarrassing that he got one. Fergie had listen, I'm not going to slag Fergie, but it seemed like we were desperate for another European Cup. I still want one now. Mourinho could say, "I'll deliver you the European Cup now." I'd finish 15th in the league. I'm not bothered. But Van Nistelrooy in Europe, he was a level above everyone else. He just scored. We were just conceding too many. We were unlucky in a few of them. But Van Nistelrooy turned up week in, week out, and his goal record says it, man. And absolutely frightening.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could chat all day about him, man. He was unreal.
He is unreal. A great footballer, a classic number 10. If anything, he changed the game when it came to number 10s and being a striker as well. He was always there. Number 10, number 9, yeah, I sort of suppose it's all in there, isn't it? The number 10 is now the number 9. Pete, let's come over to you then. We spoke a little bit there. Steve mentioned about Henry. It would be great for you to go in further. A lot of young Frenchmen now, when they're on the left wing and they can come in on their right side, they're always called the next Thierry Henry. We've seen it with Mbappe. We've seen it with Anthony Martial. Do you think that
David Bellion, remember Fergie signing him?
David Bellion as well. Hey. To you, Pete, do you think that does a discredit to how good Thierry Henry actually was? That every young Frenchman who can come inside on his right foot is touted the next Henry? Because they're huge shoes, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. I'm not surprised, because if you think of it, when young French lads growing up over, back in the late 90s, they saw Henry win he's a World Cup winner, and I guess it probably will be the only World Cup winner in our team, I think, unless I've.
That's a good shout. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I think it will be.
Well, you can take all the English players out and the Welsh. But anyway, World Cup winner, and then 2 years later, didn't they win the European Championship? Yeah, so this great French team with Zidane and Henry and many others, young lads will have done that, like we grew up with Bestie or Beckham or whoever, wanting to be them. Funny, scored different goals to Van Nistelrooy. Van Nistelrooy was what we used to call a goal-anger and goal snatcher. He was always up there, and most of his goals were in the 6-yard box, let alone the 18-yard box. Mainly on the end of Beckham's crosses. Henry would create something from anywhere, I think, across that 30-yard line, going towards the opponent's goal. Sometimes he'd be, like you said, Steve, about the goal against Barthez. You just didn't see any real danger there. And seconds later, it was in the back of United's net, and United were going toe-to-toe with Arsenal then. So he was clever as well as an instinctive goal scorer, sorry. He's got the Arsenal goal scoring record, hasn't he, 186. He's a World Cup winner, he's a European Championship medal winner. He won, it says here, 2 titles for Arsenal and the FA Cup 3 times. What we tend to forget about the early years of the Premier League is how good Arsenal were. It was United and Arsenal for the first 10 years. When United won the double for the first time in '94, they then went on to become the first team ever 2 years later, the first English team ever to win the double twice. Arsenal then equalled that 2 years later in '98. United then went and won a third double in amongst the treble, and Arsenal 2 years later went and won a third double. So they didn't just break records at Huddersfield and Liverpool and Huddersfield and Liverpool had. And Tottenham, they smashed through it. So Arsenal and Liverpool and United were, the first 10 years of the Premier League, the two giants. They were Ali and Frazier of the Premier League. And he was top scorer. So very, very, very good player. You kind of hated him because he didn't play. He played for Arsenal, but you loved him as well because you'd have had him in your team. Now, I didn't even consider Ruud van Nistelrooy. So I'm going to go away and have a long talk with myself after this podcast. And why didn't I think of him? Only because, again, probably I didn't want to put too many United players in. But I'll just say briefly, Ruud van Nistelrooy was the most lethal goal scorer I've seen for United, along with Dennis Law. I think he broke Law's record in Europe, didn't he, Steve? But he broke it in half as many games.
He did. Andy Cole had, there was a stat years ago that what Van Nistelrooy had done in like 20 games, it took Andy Cole something like 40 or 50. Van Nistelrooy was just lethal. To be honest, I'm just glad you put him in. You've been watching United. 50 odd years, man. You know what I mean? And to put him in with Dennis Law as well. I mean, I'm well happy with that, man. I tell you, because.
Well, in terms of his goal scoring instinct, just an instinctive goal scorer, I think he raced ahead to get that European goal scoring record in no time. Goals per game, yeah, it was amazing. And Law was no slouch, you know. Law got about 11 hat tricks in 63, 64. 11 bloody hat tricks. Anyway, but I didn't put Van Nistelrooy in. I put Henry in, and the other fella I put in, who kind of. If there's two players that have epitomised the Premier League probably in the time I've watched it from the beginning, Giggs is one, Shearer is the other. And he didn't last as long as Giggs, but he was there all the time for Blackburn and for Newcastle. Leicester's feat 2 years ago was amazing, but Blackburn's feat was equally amazing in '95 when they won the league. A lot of it revolved around Cantona sending off at Crystal Palace. I don't think Blackburn would have won it. But Blackburn Rovers, they really, it's just like a republic, Blackburn. It's only a small little place, isn't it? And Jack Walker and Dalglish got hold of it. Shearer personified lifting them in a way Jamie Vardy did, but more. He was at the centre of it all the time, wasn't he, Steve? And regularly on match of the day, every week, Shearer scored. But before he played for Blackburn and went on to Newcastle, I went in 1991, just before the Premier League had come out of the womb, shall we say. I went to see United play a League Cup match, a quarter-final at Southampton on Wednesday night. Went on my own like Billy No Mates because my other mates weren't bothered. Two things stand out for that night. One was America were just about to go to war because the Iraqis had gone into Kuwait. And sure enough, at something like 12 midnight, America declared war on Kuwait. And in my lifetime, that hasn't happened very often. Thatcher went to war over the Falklands, but America had gone to war with Iraq. And we all heard it coming back on the coach. And it was one of those things, non-football related. You just thought, bloody hell. But that night, I'd seen a young lad who played against United, who had a good defence in those days. Bruce and Pallister were there. And he showed such strength and determination, like Hughes, but almost a little bit more. Powered his way through, not just to score, but about 7 or 8 times. And occasionally, when I go and watch United play somebody, I do like to watch the opposition, but I'm mainly watching United. Every now and again, every blue moon, a player comes along and you think, bloody hell, he's good playing for the opposition. Shearer stood out for me that night, and I wasn't surprised he went on to great things. So I've put Shearer in, Shearer and Henry. And I've had to leave out some bloody great United players, including Keane, and I'm including Eric Cantona. And really, I can't even blame it on medication, lads.
Do you know what, though, Pete? What year was it, Pete? You'll be able to tell me this without going too much into it. What year was it that Fergie tried to sign Alan Shearer?
Well, he tried in '92, but his big 92? Move was in '96.
Yeah.
Look, I think he at the start of the Premier League era, Sir Alex Ferguson knew what he was going to get with Alan Shearer if he had brought Alan Shearer to the club, and I think that's the biggest compliment a young Alan Shearer can get at that age. He decided to stay with Blackburn and then go on to Newcastle. The goal scoring records he still sets in the being part of the 200 club. And the type of, just the legend he is. I remember being a United fan. Whenever you go to Newcastle, while Shearer was playing for them, you'd expect Alan Shearer to score against you. You would. And although, look, Ruud van Nistelrooy, I'll big up to the cows above, and I've got a love affair with Ruud van Nistelrooy. Ruud van Nistelrooy done it with the club. Everything Ruud van Nistelrooy done for the club, not the Premier League, for the club, is why I love him and why I could have not put him in the team. However, you can't argue with why Alan Shearer has to go down as one of the top 2 probably best strikers in the Premier League. Look, he retired at 36 and he was still banging in goals then. Alan Shearer retired from the international team in 2000. You really think if he didn't decide to retire so early for England that he wouldn't have set the England goal scoring records? Oh yeah, he would have. You know, his love affair for his club and the type of player he was, and he knew the type of player he was. He managed to manage himself well. If Shearer had carried on for a few more years, I still believe that he would have set that goal even higher with that tally, but he decided not to, and injuries did play a part in the end. So in some ways, I'm sort of like with Pete a bit, where I'd like to say I might give him Shearer.
Yeah, Pete's done an unbelievable job with Shearer. Again, it's one of them positions where you struggle. You could name 20 strikers now that deserve a mention. Shearer's the one that's at the top of the list. He scored just all sorts of goals. I mean, the power that he had on him. His free kicks, he'd scored plenty against United. Penalties, one of the most lethal headers. Oh, obviously, my generation now and yours, Ben, remember Drogba. But Shearer was just absolutely lethal. I've put Rude in because of I've sort of like, he was the goal hanger. For me, I put Shearer up against Henry, and Henry could do the lot, like what Pete said, and that's the, like I say, that's the only reason. Alan Shearer's got 260 odd Premier League goals. Come on now, that record's there for a long time, and obviously Pete saw him when he was about 15 and knew he was going to be a superstar, which is, I mean, that's unbelievable on the podcast, that lie. But yeah, he was close, but obviously I've got a big love affair with Van Nistelrooy, so, and Henry's got to be in everyone's for me, so.
And it's interesting, that Premier League title that Blackburn did win, Alan Shearer scored 34 goals in how many appearances was that? Altogether, that season he made 42 appearances and he scored 34 goals.
When did they shorten it down? Because for the first few years, didn't they? They had, was it 42 games?
Yeah, it was soon after. I think from the start they'd wanted just 20 teams, but it was how you got rid of the other two. I can't remember that transition. I think everyone decided to chuck Wimbledon out, didn't they, Steve?
Oh, here you go, by the way. This is one for you, Pete. This is a question for you. So, Alan Shearer got 34 goals in that Blackburn winning title side, but who was the striker who got 15 and the closest to him in that Blackburn team? Chris Sutton. Yeah, Chris Sutton.
And they were known as the SAS.
Yes,
Shearer and Sutton.
Shearer and Sutton. Bit like the
United put different words on the S&S, but they were known as Shearer and Sutton.
People don't remember Sutton now because he's on BT Sport.
Oh, he's the most annoying BT Sport pundit ever. Him and Robbie Savage, week in, week out, having an argument about football. It's a car crash. That's what it is. It's horrible to watch. But fair play to both of them. They're getting some money, aren't they? Probably more now than they did when they played, to be fair. There we go then. I think we've got it. I think we'll give you Shearer there, Pete. I wouldn't mind giving you Shearer, but Ruud van Nistelrooy comes very close.
Oh, definitely. And just so hard. You could do 3 or 4 more 11s of great players you've left out. You could do 2 United sides. Yeah. And there's some early Arsenal stuff maybe we've left out. We've probably not. I was just thinking when you mentioned Company earlier, Ben, that if Company hadn't got his injuries over the last, say, 3 years, it might be a bit longer, I don't know, I think he would have been up there. It sometimes is, great players can be blighted by injury or they get transferred away. Like Van Nistelrooy only had 5 years at United and made way for the emergence of Rooney and Ronaldo, really, because United were a bit too one-dimensional. He was great. But once he was injured or not playing well or marked out the game, we were a bit one-dimensional. I think he played Scholes up with him at one stage, Steve. But so sometimes players have a short burst. I think a lot of the ones we've gone for, they did it year in, year out for a 10 or 12-year career at top clubs.
Do you know what's interesting there, Pete? You mentioned Company, and I want to come with you with our final question of show in a minute, and I do want to ask you about a few players who have not made this list and possibly could in the future. But right now, as decided by me, Steve and Pete, let's go through our full 11, shall we? We're going to start off in goal. We've got Petr Cech, Gary Neville at right back, Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic as centre back, Ashley Cole at left back. In a traditional 4-4-2, Cristiano Ronaldo on the right hand side of that midfield with Gerrard and Scholes in the middle, Giggs on the left, and then Shearer and Henry up front. Do you know, before I come to Pete and ask him the final question of the show, Steve, who would you give the captain's armband to in that side?
That's a good question, that mate. You know what? Yeah, I agree with what you said here. I think I'd probably give it Gerrard.
Yeah,
I didn't agree with Gerrard going in. To be honest, I'd have given it Patrick Vieira. But yeah, Gerrard out of all of them, he'd have definitely got that going.
And the final question show always goes to our special guest. We're lucky to have the guy who held up the Terrar Fergie banner. He's written books on it. He is a football historian. I can't wait already for part 2 of
Which everyone should read, by the way, Ben. Sorry about that, man. I read that on holiday.
You've got it, haven't you?
I have, mate. I read it, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Do you want us to see if we can send it up to Pete and get you a signed copy, Steve?
You know what, mate? I'll take that.
Well, I thank you genuinely, all joking apart, for your comments, Steve. I really appreciate it. And, one reason why I wanted to write it is because I thought I wanted to share some tales with United fans and just get, hopefully that they would enjoy it. And when people say they did, then that's great. So thanks very much.
Well, if you go and quickly, Pete, get a Terrar Mourinho banner, you could do a part 2 at some point and you could get Steve's testimonial on the back of it. That'd work out quite nicely, wouldn't it? Let's get our final question over to you, though, Pete. And it's going to be a bit of a complicated one, but I just want to be mesmerised from you for about the next 3 to 5 minutes. So players who could make that team in the future. Look, we haven't even mentioned Wayne Rooney. And the amount of goals, and he is the leading goal scorer of nearly there in Premier League history. And in terms of what he's done for Manchester United and being a leader of England, what can Rooney do now to get in that team? And also players like David De Gea, Vincent Kompany, maybe players coming through like Marcus Rashford. I don't know. I would say an Arsenal player just to even it up, but there's no one in that side who'll ever make a team like this, is there? But still, out of Premier League players and players coming through in the Premier League now, and maybe players who have been there for the last 5 years and are on the edge of getting into that side, what do they have to do to get in a great side like this? And are there any players off your head who you think of could make our next Premier League 11?
Gosh, it's always hard to see ahead, because I've seen many players, as we all have probably, that have had a great one season and they were going to be the next best thing, and they've gone. You've Adnan, we could name many. As regards Wayne Rooney, I don't think he can do any more now, and obviously he's got more pressing problems. But Wayne Rooney's been a great servant for United, and I don't fall into the camp of he was disloyal and he asked for a transfer in 2010. He probably did. He was probably badly advised by his agent.
Who could be a student with the amount of decisions he made for him, let's face it.
Very rich one. But Rooney, to break United's goal scoring record with all the players United have had in 139 years is tremendous. And then he breaks England's goal scoring record. There's been a lot of players, like you mentioned, Shearer trying to break that, Lineker. So he's up there on a pedestal, and he won at the highest level for United. So why isn't he in there? Really, they'd all be in there if it was a United Premier League team. Players that are there now, gosh, let me see who's around that's really impressing.
David De Gea has got to be one who gets in there. Another couple of seasons.
De Gea, if he sticks around in the Premier League, yes, because I do think this team can go on and win the league and win the European Cup. It feels like the mid-90s. It feels like the mid-noughties again. He's building something. He's not building on sand now, Mourinho. He's building something solid. It takes time. And again, in the last few years, United, without Fergie, have had to kiss a few frogs to find the princes. Once you take that greatness away of Busby or Fergie, there's an immense void. And even people like, Moyes and Van Gaal couldn't fill it. But Mourinho can. And I think he gets it. I don't think he'll make any of the mistakes. The few big mistakes he made at Chelsea. So in the United team,
Aguero maybe, when you think about strikers.
Aguero, yeah, I like Aguero. I'm surprised we didn't consider him. Aguero, Marcus Rashford is the one, because he just seems to have a genuine coolness about him. Not cool as in fashionable, but as in cool-headed. Dele Alli could, if he gets his act together. There's a little bit of the night about him that I don't like. He needs to cut it out.
Harry Kane's another then as well, in there, who could possibly one day make this side.
Yeah, Kane. Sorry, Harry Kane. Kane. This doesn't sound very exciting, does it? Dele Alli, Rashford, Liverpool.
It's like Monday night all over again. It's like the England team.
Have you got any easy questions? The thing about, you've got Liverpool players there. They kept Coutinho, and he turns it on Mane. But all we're seeing is a glimpse at the moment. Those players we've put in, as I said, they did it year in, year out. And it's one thing that the Beatles always said, the hardest thing wasn't getting to the top, it was staying at the top, Yeah. And to stay at the top takes a bit of luck, a good manager around you, good advice from an agent or a student, and then sheer determination. So we can't see that in players. But what I'm happy about is that United have got men of the right calibre that I think in 10 years' time we might be struggling again, because we've got to keep some United players out and get other teams' players in. Because I think United are going to go into a very good run.
Well, let me tell you, Pete, there's one thing I'm not happy about, and that's there's so many players that we haven't mentioned. So if it's all right with you, Pete, we discuss it after the show, but I'm going to turn this into a 3-part series, and in the October international break, we'll do our second Premier League 11s, because there's so many players we haven't spoken in depth about, even one of them being in Steve's team, Dennis Irwin. We have hardly mentioned him, and he has to be one of the greatest of all time. Patrick Vieira, Roy Keane, there's all these players that we could talk more in depth about. Cantona as well is another one. I mean,
next
there's so many players.
It's built around that now.
Yeah, there's so many players that we need to talk about more. Dennis Bergkamp. We haven't even spoken about Bergkamp. Yeah. So, do you know what? We're going to, in the October international break, we'll do a 3-part on this. We'll chat about our second 11, or maybe we'll just talk about special moments from special players. Then a bit more down the line, we'll chat about our own Premier League memories and moments of the last 25 years. Pete, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. At Pete Molyneux, go and check him out. We'll put all his links up on at the Topic Pod as well on Twitter. It's been a joy having you on, and we can't wait for part 2 already of 25 years of the Premier League.
It's been a pleasure, lads. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And thank you, Steve, as ever. Did you enjoy that as much as you thought you would?
Yeah, I did, mate. He don't disappoint, does he? He's ace, man. Absolutely ace.
Well, let's hope that next week we can get just as good a guest on as Pete, as we'll have an episode 6 of the Topic on. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click download and check out all of our other episodes as well. The best World 11 right now. We've got Premier League predictions. We've got a Wayne Rooney retirement special, and we have a look at his Champions League draw as well. Check out all the other podcasts on iTunes, Acast, Podbean, the lot. We're everywhere. And thank you for listening to episode 5. We're going to get out of here. We're back with a brand new episode next week. Bye for now.